So, hi everyone. I just want to introduce Jeff Ganz. Jeff used to play for Johnny Winter, and that's how we first kind of met, wasn't it? I did a chart of what was it? Life is hard.
Life is hard, and then life is hard, and then you die.
Then you die, which is like one of my favorite lyrics ever. I just love it. It's so morose, you know.
Well, I was really honored and flattered that you sought it out. I mean,
yeah. So
you took the time to do it.
It was brilliant. I'm actually glad I kind of credited you actually on it.
That was very cool.
Yeah, and it was great to hear about the kind of basses and string choices and drop D tuning, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As many of you know, I'm doing my British blues course. I'm writing that at the moment. So I thought it would be good to get a perspective from yourself, Jeff, about being an American.
From an American, you mean?
From an American, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I've always loved the British blues. I got that from my dad, really. He just played Cream and, well, he just played a whole variety, Beatles, Stones,
musician.
Cream. He taught me piano from the age of 4. But he didn't ever do it for a job, but he was a guitarist. He used to play and, you know, so I just used to raid his, well, by that point it was tapes. He just put all his record on tapes. So drawers and drawers and drawers of it. It was brilliant.
But that ignited the fire for you to want to do a deeper dive into it and give this thing that you loved as a kid a language, which means, you know, as a noted bass teacher and as a noted bass player.
Exactly, yeah, and it's my kind of my first love. That's what got me playing. We used to do, you know, when I was 14, I had a blues band with my mates. We used to just do all that stuff. We were born in the wrong era, I think.
Tell me, you know what? I don't know anybody that doesn't say that, no matter how old.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. But it's hard for me sometimes to look at, like, objectively look at the British blues because I'm so kind of, you know, I grew up with it. And interesting enough, I didn't really know about the original kind of, you know, like Howlin' Wolf, all those guys. I didn't until years later, really. That's when I started to kind of look into American blues and where all the Brits got all this stuff from. So I kind of did it probably, well, maybe the opposite way to you. I don't know.
Well, and vice versa, because, you know, the people of my demographic, I'm 69 now, you know, so when we were kids, the blues we knew about were Hendrix, Cream, Fleetwood Mac. It was coming back. So then we would forensically get into the people that the Brits allegedly took it from.
Yes.
Sonny Williamsons and everything.
Yeah.
So we went the other way around. It was on another level of being filtered.
Yes. Yeah. That's interesting.
And handed down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think my real favorites were basically Cream and Peter Green, Fleetwood Mac. That was kind of, that really was, I can't even remember the album, the Fleetwood Mac one. I think it was just the best of Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac. I think that was.
Let me guess. When I first knew about the album, and my brother, you know, the bum of the family, a brain surgeon.
Oh, yeah.
I kid you not. He bought me the remastered version of Then Play On.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh Well is from.
Oh, and, yes. Yeah.
You know, that's the other. I can't think of the title right now, but it's the one Steven Tyler covered it. You know, in that country band that he's been with. Yeah. And Rattlestick, Shake, all those things I believe are on that record.
Yeah.
It was just awesome. And I mean, know, the team of Fleetwood of Mick and John McVie is just unstoppable.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I didn't really know the later Fleetwood Mac at all at the time. So when I found out about that, I was really confused. You know, I heard like someone else, what's that? And they go Fleetwood Mac, and I was like, is it? You know, and I just didn't know that they'd carried on obviously without Peter Green, but you know.
Sure, and like so much other music, you get saturated sometimes by cover versions of things. Case in point being Black Magic Woman. Everybody's familiar with the Santana version.
Yeah,
but if you go back and do a deep dive into the Fleetwood Mac, the way they did it. Yeah, it's really, really different and very, very haunting. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's where I love that song. I think that was definitely where I first heard it.
Especially that shuffle thing on the end.
Oh, yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah, and actually, I've got a question for you later about the British Shuffle, actually, which would be quite interesting. So the first question I had was, when were you first aware of British blues, and was it through a particular band?
Probably Hendrix.
Okay, yeah.
My friend Richard Blau's father used to work for Warner Brothers Records, And I went to high school and middle school with Richard Blau, and he goes, I get all these records for free. You know, would your friend like one? So he hands me Are You Experienced?
Nice. Yeah, great.
and I'm 13 or 14 years old. And of course, I was blown away by it, as was everybody else.
Yeah.
And I would have to say that if you wanted to describe Jimi Hendrix's experience as British blues, I mean, you could, right?
Yes, that's interesting, actually. Yeah.
Even though he was an American, you know, because there's a lot of and as a matter of fact, I referenced this. We had a little Facebook chat about it, you and I.
Red
I got
House.
to Noel Reading later. After the Red House thing.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Noel Reading to me doesn't get the respect he deserves.
No. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah, the comments, like, you know, that people were putting about. His name's, who's the guy who did the later, who then took over. The other
Billy Cox.
Yeah, so everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Noel Reading," but Billy Cox is where it's at, and yeah, he was definitely more of a bass player. But yeah, it's funny how people don't really understand what they were doing at the time in context, you know, of what, you know.
Well, it's like comparing, you know, to me, a guy like Jack Bruce, who it took me years to realize, wait a minute, he may have been in Cream, but he was a jazz player.
He was a jazz player, yeah.
He was a jazz musician and had jazz mentality, and a lot of that education came from Beware of Mr. Baker, which I'm sure you've seen many times. And I actually have a great Baker story for you. Do you remember when he was talking when he was living in Colorado?
No, I don't. No.
With a jazz quintet, you know, like towards the end of the movie. So I went to see that quintet in New York at Iridium, the old Iridium, when it was up by Center, and it was excellent. Yeah. So there's a big set of, I ended up getting into the dressing room, just kind of like walking in, you know, after a lot of the guys that I knew that, you know, all the drummers that were hanging in there all left. I walked in and I noticed the DW drums. I got to shake hands with him and talk to him. And I said, so how long have you been playing DW drums? Because he was a, you know, longtime Ludwig drums endorser.
Yeah.
And he wheels around and answers me. And he goes, since Monday, Ludwig effed me.
Oh, wow.
You know? It's like, whoa, you know.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, his hero was Phil Seaman.
Yeah.
And are you familiar with the Phil Seaman West Side Story?
No, I don't know that, no.
Well, Phil Seaman was a very famous British jazz drummer.
Yeah.
And also a very famous partaker.
Yeah.
And Ginger was his, you know, he was Ginger's hero.
Yeah. So
mentor.
Yeah.
But I don't want to take you off topic. I'm
No. It's really interesting, actually. Yeah. I've got, because Jack Bruce I'm going to talk about in a minute, basically. So a question before that, how do you think British blues was different? So I'm kind of looking at the British blues explosion of kind of the early to mid 60s to like 69, that kind of period. So compared to American blues, how do you think it was different, or what would you think the main differences are?
The drummers.
Okay. Yeah.
The drummers themselves, which make bass players play differently. I mean, I'm also a drummer.
Okay.
So I'm very sensitive to what drummers do.
Yes. Yeah.
So the fact that these guys, they weren't like the Sam Lay Chicago kind of guys.
No,
they were playing much more
toms
and more ornamentation.
Yeah. So when I think of, I before I did a lot more research on this, I used to think that Ginger Baker was completely unique, and he was unique. But there was, you know, like Keith Hartley, these guys were doing the kind of something similar, basically, weren't they? You know, a lot of toms and so then I started hearing, actually, you know, that was the scene at the time, wasn't it? You know, so that brings me on to another question: is do you think that the musical background of these British guys, like the jazz players, that had a big part in the sound?
For some of them, certainly.
Yeah.
You know, because Baker was playing also with Bruce with help me out here, Greg. I'm sorry, the keyboard player that was. Yeah, I don't know who you mean. Do you mean in Blues Incorporated? Do you mean earlier on? Yeah. But what was the name of that piano player? Heavy set dude, and very well known, considered an architect. Not John Baldry, but
No. I think I know what you mean, but I've forgotten his name. I think it's someone my dad's into. Who's still playing now?
I don't think he's around anymore.
No.
And I can't think of the name. I don't want to take your time away from.
Yeah. I don't know.
I might just realize it while we're talking about something completely different.
I'll look back and I'll put this in when I edit it.
Right.
Yeah.
But in a much more structured environment.
Yeah.
With one bass drum.
Yes. And
playing, I think Bruce was actually may or may not have been playing upright in this band.
Oh yeah. Okay. So songs for Taylor, and I listened to some of that stuff.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
I love that record. Theme for an Imaginary Western.
Yeah.
The way it is on that. And you know what? Being that you're, so versatile and play jazz and everything, the mountain version is much more popular.
Yeah.
But the fact that Jack Bruce does it in G and not A like Mountain does, really gives it a whole other color.
Yeah. Now it's interesting keys, isn't it? When I do the other day, we did something. It was just on a show, Back to the Future, and they changed the key just down a tone. It was the hardest piece in the blooming show. It's like a big gospel thing, but it just doesn't sound right. Like
you're absolutely right.
The thing in keys, it just doesn't work. I think because for the guitars and the bass, I can't remember what it changed to. It just doesn't. It doesn't sit. You can't do the runs right. It's like doesn't work.
Well, that's one of the reasons, we had started to touch upon, that fact that when I played with Johnny, I was playing, he tuned to open D.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah.
So rather than me use a 5-string on that gig,
I
actually had heavier gauge strings tuned D, G, C, CF.
Right, yes.
And played open. And I think that's, to your point, that things just drone differently. They're open. Not even so much but the change of key, but the fact that you have low droning strings exacerbates what you're talking about, even proves it even more. You change the tonal center of something and you're dealing with a low open E or a D or whatever it is. You're dealing with the inherent overtones that are happening. Everything. And depending on if you're using a round or a flat wound string or a tape wound string, how long that note is actually going to last. You start to hear the windings. I mean, all of those things contribute, I think, to exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. So if we compare it to what's happening in America at the time, would you say that it's quite hard for me to kind of put my finger on? Would a lot of those players have been what you call like homegrown, what my mate would call like street musicians, or would they? On the kind of scene, because it was mostly African American musicians. Really, was it still at that time? Wasn't it? In jazz
or in blues?
In blues in the say mid 60s. Would that have been the case in the States?
With the exception of people like Paul Butterfield, I would say that's pretty right, because, back at that time when British blues was coming here, you had the emergence of Michael Bloomfield.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
Who started with, Paul Butterfield before he went to Electric Flag.
Yeah.
And then Electric Flag, then you had more Caucasians like Nick Gravenides, Harvey Brooks was in that band.
Okay. Yeah, I know that name.
The drummer was Buddy Miles.
Okay, right, yeah.
So then you had all of that going on, and they're not, they're writing, but they're also being affected very much by the concurrent psychedelic scene.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
That was coming out of so there were a lot of long blues meandering jams, not the kind of Buddy Guy or Otis Rush kind of blues.
Yes,
but sort of like Jerry Garcia, Quicksilver Messenger Service, John Cipollina. There was that, and as a matter of fact, it didn't necessarily even have 12-bar form.
Yeah.
It just kind of kept going, but they're playing pentatonic.
Yes, yeah.
Blues things under it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Fender, volume swell kind of things.
Oh yes, yeah.
For textures.
Yeah. Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah. So the thing I noticed really is, if you're looking at the bass players of the British Blues Explosion, they were just really virtuosic, weren't they? And that's interesting, your point of kind of following the drummer in a way, or picking that cue up from the drummer, because the drummers were just going for it, weren't they? So maybe the bass
Well,
players were like, right,
for
I'm
it.
gonna just gonna, you know.
Yes, yes. But, you know, when I look at things like Monterey with Hendrix and Billy Cox, and I saw them when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
saw that.
Did you? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was awesome. As a matter of fact, the opening act, which was not well received by the young kids wanting to see Hendrix, was Sly and the Family Stone.
Oh, right. Nice. Yeah,
All of the with Larry Graham.
Yeah, with Larry Graham. Yeah, yeah.
This is May 10th, 1968, Fillmore East, New York.
Wow, wow.
That's unbelievable. And also, you know, his brother Freddie Stone playing a big Gibson 175 and comping the living daylights.
Yeah, yeah,
like really like Curtis Mayfield kind of comping, which is why to me Hendrix felt so great, because he was a rhythm player.
Yeah,
he was an astonishingly good rhythm player.
Yeah.
You know, and created those. And then Reading it comes in there, and he's not playing like you know, the James Brown guys. He's playing. He's a guitarist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But just for me, I loved his sound. I love the fact that it's a massive wall of everything.
Yeah,
it wasn't particularly, you know, the articulation of it and what he did just made it part of the fabric that if he wasn't there, it's not going to be the same thing.
Yeah, not going to be. Yeah, I mean, and I loved it when I first heard it. You know, when you're not kind of judging the music or whether it's simple or whatever. I just, you know, like Hey Joe, like playing that, I was like, this is just amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I absolutely loved it.
Keep in mind also that Hendrix wanted to recut and did recut some of his own bass parts.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and then there were session musicians. You had mentioned your bass with Jack Casady. Jack Casady is appearing on Electric Ladyland.
So they're bringing in different, bringing in people, yeah.
Right. So if you compare Noel Reading to, say, a Billy Cox, from my vantage point, more of what has been these days described as a pocket player.
Yes. Yeah.
Pocket player meaning one thing that, to me, I don't know if you're going to ask me that, but one of the things that works for me as far as bass playing is ostinato playing.
Yeah.
Not creating, almost like what I do is when I'm playing, I got a lot of this from Tommy Shannon.
Yeah.
Who I was very good friends with.
Yeah.
Still very close.
Oh, great. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wondered about that, actually. Yeah.
Well, he went from being my hero to being my friend.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
You
that's
know what
amazing.
I mean? Because I was certainly one of those, like, the starstruck.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Which has always been a thing with me, trying to make that transition between being fanboy and being colleague.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Tommy's whole thing was repetition.
Yeah.
Whether it's without a bunch of fills,
it
sets up, for lack of a better word, a mantra.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've always
put on top of it, whatever you want. So I repeat a lot of patterns. I don't, I don't even necessarily feel like I want to telegraph what the next chord's going to be.
No.
Like, we kind of all know what the next chord is going to be.
If
I'm telegraphing that, why would I want to push that guitarist in that direction? Or, it's not who's there. You know what I mean? We know he's going there. Why don't you just create the space for this guy to do what he wants?
Yeah. No, I've always loved, like, what I call groove playing. And I think I initially I came to bass quite late. I played it when I was younger, but I properly sorted it out at sort of 18 onwards.
Same here. I was 20.
Yeah. So I kind of
guitar player first.
Started,
bass was, with the kind of jobbing that I was doing, which was private parties. At that time, bass was a compulsory double.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting.
So I started bringing it on gigs and watching guys' left hands to learn the tunes. Yeah. That's when I had the epiphany of, wait a minute, I'm playing the wrong instrument.
Yeah. I always loved bass, but I was kind of playing piano, trumpet, doing the whole thing with that. And
that's great, though. I mean, I wish I had studied piano more. I mean, I took it when I was a kid, hated it. Took clarinet when I was a kid, had no use for it. But it sounds like everything you've done to this point is putting you where you are, because you're able to articulate bass in other languages. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, that whole thing, by that point, I'm self-taught on the bass. I've had a few odd lessons off of, I think I've probably had 5 lessons. There's like, I had 2 with this guy, Rufus Philpott, who moved to the
I know States. Rufus is great.
Yeah, Rufus. Before he moved over to New York, I think, first, where I don't know if he went, or did he go straight to LA? I don't know. But I had 2 lessons of him, and then he moved. And then there's a guy called Mike Mondozzi, who you might know, but you know his brother Mark Mondesi. They're drummer, and they've been in the fusion scene for years. So
Okay.
Mike's a bit older. He's Billy Cobham. He's done for years.
Oh, okay.
So
okay. But I do know Rufus, and I've subbed for Rufus. As a matter of fact,
have you? Oh, cool.
As a matter of fact, there was an event at the NAMM show that Gil Paris and Bernie Williams, the baseball.
Yeah.
Rufus couldn't make the gig, and I found out an hour before that I was going to be doing it.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, I see some of Rufus's stuff.
He's a monster. He's a monster.
Oh, Matt, I see some of his stuff with Scott's. I still don't understand it. I'm still like, huh?
Yeah, but you know what? He's very conscious of the big picture too.
Yeah, definitely.
What guys of that caliber are.
Yeah.
You still know why they're there.
Yes. Yeah.
And create those kind of, very sophisticated textures under the kind of people like Alan Holdsworth, like Jeff, or Flim Johnson. I mean, Flim Johnson could play with James Taylor, and he could play with Alan Holdsworth.
And it's amazing. I love the players that can just, that are just doing all this crossover stuff. I love
Flim and the Beatles. His own band was great.
Yeah, I actually prefer hearing them doing the simpler stuff though. Like I enjoy that more. Like the real monsters, but when they go and do something with an artist, I'm like, I really like that,
Or Leland Sklar, who played with James Taylor and on Stratus.
Yes,
I love that. I love the fact that you can't necessarily know just because you hear a record by one guy what their trick is.
Yes, yeah. It's great, isn't it? So I was kind of self-taught, but I took all that. I just took all the stuff that I knew and then made my own path, and it's quite nice because even in the West End, there's a lot of players kind of went to the same teacher, basically. They went through the college thing, same teacher. I kind of didn't really do that. So certain extent, some people are the same types of players. And it's quite nice to just feel that I'm just the kind of product of myself, basically,
Well, absolutely. I mean, so you learn the language and doing it the way you want, which is sort of what I've been trying to do my whole life. Yeah, just trying to do. I mean, I forgot it at one point, but really, all I want to do is just keep becoming a better musician and on bass mostly, and just that's it. I don't have any like, I want to do this, I want to do that. I just want to, if I can earn money with it and just keep improving, that's what I want to do. Well, I wonder if well, same here, and I wonder if I could speak for you at all. I'll take my chance. When your family came along, like when I got married and had stepkids, that changed my entire reason. To the instrument. I played differently because of my family.
No, I do as well.
As opposed to being a guy who was a fan of the shooting stars that were monster musicians that didn't know how to stay alive.
Yes. You suddenly have to reassess the whole thing. I remember I went on a massive. I put a lot of work into my playing just after Jack was born for some reason. Like, I don't know, it just sparked off this thing of like, I need to sort some stuff. Your time becomes more precious. You just become a bit more focused, I think. I was like, what do I want to be doing with it? And that's when I kind of started moving away a little bit from the West End a bit, just
and it also has to do with it created contentment in you.
Yeah.
A guy living in a flat somewhere who can play Donna Lee faster than everybody.
Yeah. Very true.
So
very
why,
true. Yeah.
I mean, and at my age, I feel really lucky to be able to, forensically see the path and to see what I need to do to improve, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, that's good. And I think you just become a little bit more happy with, well, you realize that what you need to be you, basically, which sounds corny, but it's like, you're always, when you're younger, you're trying to think that you have to play like this, you have to play like that, you have to have all that stuff together. And then I realized I'm not that sort of player for some of it. I just not, I'm a simpler type of player, but that's what I hear and that's what I want to do, So you become more kind of confident in just doing that,
Well, to your point, one of the things that I specifically do along the lines of what you're talking about is I'm a fixer.
Okay, right, yeah.
I like to get people out of trouble.
Yeah, nice.
If the singer jumps a bar and a half with the lyric there, and the band knows it, singer might not even know it. The audience doesn't know it.
Yeah.
I mean, in interviews, I've always, when people say, "Well, what do you think is your forte as a musician?"
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm one of the best at running behind the elephant with the pail.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, yeah, great. Yeah, yeah, just making it work.
And you know what? Learning the language to do that. I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there to make other people sound as good as they can from my vantage point, which is why I'm producing more.
Oh, nice. Yeah, great. Yeah.
You know, because it's just, especially with the technology right now, that you get to facilitate what you're hearing more.
Yes. Yeah.
In other people's music.
Yeah.
Not to predominate it, because, you know, we're also living in the age of endless narcissism.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, it's been an interesting thing over the last few years putting the courses together, because I tried to, one of my big things is I want to have really good backing tracks for my courses. So that's because, you know, people just use, you know, what's the iReal app backing tracks, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I just want to have it. So I was starting to kind of, you know, we're doing covers, but just pull different musicians together. And that's an art in itself, isn't it? Because you kind of use some and you think, actually, they weren't really the best choice. You know, you just kind of think sax player, get him. But then after a while, you kind of start to think who's, like I did Love That Burns. I think that's what it's called. I'm so bad with names. Fleetwood Mac. And there's one guy, and there's the horns just doing this riff, and there's like one guy's like, he's just going to be great. So then it's kind of, what's that?
Graham Bond.
Oh yeah, yes. Oh yeah.
Told you. Sorry to interrupt. But
come to you. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, so it's kind of learning. Yeah, it's learning who's going to sound good on stuff. You know, using someone for what they're best at. You know, that's been
right.
That's
but also because your thing also is developing total musicianship.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah.
these people take the tracks that you've made for them
Yes.
and play with them and learn everything, and then they go out into the world. They got a much better perspective on what they're going to come across.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll try to get
encounter.
Yeah, as near as possible. So it's as near as possible as playing with live band. Basically, that's the kind of.
Or just even to hear the difference. You know, the fact that there are so many different recordings of any tune you can name.
Yeah.
They can go in and listen to a recording. I mean, even Ella Fitzgerald recorded. No, was it Ella Fitzgerald and Nancy Wilson recorded "Sunshine of Your Love"?
Oh, right. Did they? Yeah. Wow.
So to listen to that with our cream ears.
Yeah.
You know, and hearing all these people revoice all these things, and
yes,
but they don't have the same kind of connection to it that folks like you and I have.
Yes, yeah, and that'll be interesting to hear. Like, the backing tracks are kind of our take on, you know, me and my mates' takes on the old stuff. So that's quite a different thing in itself, isn't it? You know,
right? The fact that some of the greatest bass lines have come up by people that are doublers.
Yeah.
People like Wilton Felder.
Yeah.
People like Larry Knechtel.
Yeah.
Who played bass on the Soul. You know, he was in the Wrecking Crew, which I'm sure.
The Wrecking Crew. Yeah.
He was a pianist also, not just a bass player.
That's amazing. I like when guitarists play bass lines actually, because they're quite tasty. You hear them, you're like, yeah, that's not a bass player didn't play that. And there's some really nice stuff. Yeah.
Right. And another interesting band like that is Kid Creole and the Coconuts. My friend Carol Coleman played bass for them for a long time, but August Darnell, the band leader, is a bass player.
Yeah.
And some of these things are, you know, they'll give you a run for your money while you're trying to transcribe them.
Oh yeah, and then you're trying to play them as well. You're thinking like, you know, like what's going on?
And even sonically, you know, jazz bass flat wound with a pick.
Yeah.
Get tuned into that sound and realize why it works. Which I hope I'm not leading you too far astray here, but
it's fine. It's great.
It all kind of gets back to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, how do these bass players, or why do these bands, American or British, feel the way they do?
Yes, yeah. And when you hear it, like so I listened to Andy Fraser, one of the blues ones, Going Down Slow, and I just couldn't believe it when I really listened to it. Like, he was just, you know, it's just crazy stuff, but sounds so amazing. I tried to transcribe it and I was like,
well, I'm going to go listen to it now that you've told me about it.
Yeah, so Going Down Slow, yeah.
If I had to guess, it might have had something to do with the EB3 and the Marshall.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When Marshalls came out, even though they were copies of 59 the basements, they redefined sonically where things sit.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. EB3, is that the Gibson short scale thing?
Yes, I have. I actually have. Have one here.
Oh, cool. So Jack Bruce
No,
had
I
that.
haven't. No, I have. These are my
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah,
83s.
yeah, nice, nice.
The 83Ls from the 70s. And
Wow.
it's another bass that for some reason when I play it, I feel like I feel like I sound like me because I don't play any two instruments, probably like yourself, the same.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 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 And it's interesting actually, Jack Bruce, when he did that, like when I first listened to him, it was one of the first bass players I ever tried to learn from. Where I picked a good one, but like all his bending, I thought, oh, he was playing a fretless maybe. I tried to do all that stuff when I could hardly play the bass, but I just tried to play his stuff and didn't know about the instrument choices or any of that,
And the 30-inch scale.
Yeah, 30-inch
Why
scale.
does a Dan Electro bass sound different than a Fender bass? Because of the 30-inch scale. I mean, I've got an acoustic, a no-name agile acoustic electric bass that's got like a shorter scale, and it really is as close to a Dan Electro as anything you could imagine. Because you just play it differently. It's going to go. The note's going to last as long or as short as it does.
Yes.
And if you want the note to continue, maybe you'll stretch a note like Jack Bruce did during the world. You know what I mean? To create that texture, and know that when you have a guy either Clapton or Leslie West with West Bruce and Lang or Gary Moore or whoever else you're playing with, that real estate is covered, but it's not interfering.
Yes. Yeah. How interesting.
It's sort of a weird science, but it is true,
Yeah.
And I think Marshall amps and Gibson basses had a lot to do with it, but then there were also the Fender guys.
Yeah.
The Humble Pie. The John McVies that set up this real nice, plunky, fat sound.
Yeah. It's funny because McVie, much simpler player, because I looked at stepping out. So it's like the
I know that.
Yeah, so John McVie one, and then I looked at the cream ones, and I'm going to do that in the course. And then it's just so interesting. Obviously, Jack Bruce plays it completely differently, but I still love John McVie's one as well. It's just brilliant. It's just such
have you heard the Powerhouse stuff?
No.
Eric Clapton and the Powerhouse. The bass player is Muff Winwood.
Was this later or was this
around the same time?
Because I heard that he'd released Stepping Out with not with Cream and not with John Mayer, so that would be the one.
It's on an Elektra Records collection called What's Shakin'.
Okay, because I tried to find
Butterfield stuff on there.
Okay.
Vinyl only is what I'm aware of, but and Muff Winwood, of course, played with his brother with Spencer Davis.
Oh, Spencer Davis, yeah. My dad loves that. Yeah, I tried to find.
Old has its advantages.
Yeah. I tried to find another version. I couldn't find that. Because I heard there was another version, but I'll have to look further. A nice thing actually about that bass in the background is I did Strange Brew for this course. And when I was playing it, I was thinking, this is the bass that I used to play Strange Brew with my mates in the late 80s. Like it suddenly dawned on me that because I did it on that, I did all the course on that actually. I thought it sounded quite good. I was like, this is the same bass. It was like suddenly like, wow, it's a really nice moment,
and the fact that, because you are who you are, the fact that you would pay attention to that articulation and you know how to do it. I mean, playing Hamilton is helping you to play Strange Brew.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I mean, like Hamilton, it's like we laugh because they'll have a phrase for 8 bars with a and then they'll just do the same thing 8 bars later. He's so like his brain. It actually really works well. Like the thing he writes for bass. There's stuff on a pick and a hollow body for the like McCartney sound and stuff. It does work really well, but it's so controlled. It's amazing. It's quite a mission to do the show.
Does it freak you out that show was written on GarageBand?
It does now, yeah. I always wonder whether these. I know they do it sometimes, like Jason Robert Brown. Those guys, they bring in really good players to do the parts, don't they? Like there's a fretless part on. I can't remember his show. Last 10 years, it was amazing. It's like fretless bass, cellos, piano, no drums.
If you send me some links to that, I'd love to hear.
It's and it's lovely, and it's like I was like, that's written by a bass player, definitely. So I wonder, like, if again for the Hamilton, if all these parts were kind of collectively written afterwards.
Well, and there you go. I mean, could you imagine anybody else playing Wherever I Lay My Hat Is My Home other than Pino Palladino?
Yes,
and then he became Mr. P-Bass guy with The Who.
Yeah, it was amazing, isn't it?
You know what I mean? That level of musicianship.
Yes,
They're guys. You know, those guys are you as a educator are making it easier for people to learn about those guys.
Yes,
if they're open to the experience.
Yes, true. I had a great one with Pino when I was doing Jersey Boys. It's opposite Ronnie Scott's, so literally the stage door of Jersey Boys opposite Ronnie Scott's front door.
Oh wow!
And then there was a guy I think he worked for Scott Space Station. It was like an iBase magazine. It was like an online magazine.
Okay.
And the guy had just interviewed a few people, so I got to know him. And he called me and he said, "Are you in? Are you in town at all? We've got Pino's here for an interview, and the truck hasn't turned out. He hasn't got any basses or anything." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, it was a Tuesday. I was like, "I'm in for a matinee. I'm actually in, but he can have the bass, but I've got to have it back in an hour." Like it was my, So I gave him my Lapland P, which he and I got to meet him, and he was lovely, and he loved it. He was like, "This is great," And then I sat in on the interview because he was playing at Ronnie's in the evening, and they just interviewed him in a lounge in the day. And then I was like, I've got to go, got the bass, went back, played the show. I was like, all my debts were like, "Oh, don't ever change the strings." People love it after that. Yeah. Everyone a debt, same bass as Pino,
That's awesome.
Got a good photo and stuff. He was really nice. It's funny, these guys are so humble, aren't they? And he was quiet. He was pretty quiet. I could tell he didn't really enjoy the whole just the interviewing thing, So.
Well, those kinds of guys are there doing this for the same reason you and I are.
Yeah,
it's about the craft.
Yeah. It's interesting, and he definitely is not comfortable with any kind of fame or anything. Just doesn't want to know. It's interesting. He's so humble when he talks about the bass lines from the Stravinsky thing. That's Wherever I Lay My Hat, isn't it? And he says he said he did it, and he didn't know that it was going to be that high up in the mix or anything. He said it was meant to be just part of the track, and then he heard it, and he was like, "Like what?"
I'll send you a thing I did a few years ago. I put it up on put a link up to it on my Facebook page a while ago. A rhythm section arrangement by Peter Phillips of The Rite of Spring.
Oh right, nice.
That was done by a fellow named Alan Herman. I met him at the Broadway show Dancing. Very prominent, heavy drum show, and we hit it off, and we played a lot together. Alan has worked with everybody from Elliot Randall. He was in Randall's Island. Isn't Elliot Randall in your neck of the woods? Isn't he in London?
Yeah, he was
playing on the West End. I think he played Hair.
He did Hair. The last I heard, he did Hair,
and that's where I subbed on Broadway. That was the last Broadway I did was Hair.
Yeah, he was. I don't know if he's still over here now, but yeah, my mate Tommy played guitar too with him on Hair. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so he's got some great stories from that. He said it was great, really cool guy. Yeah. I'm trying to see if I've got a.
No, I think, like I said, it looks like we're all over the place.
Oh no, it's fine. It's great. I'm really enjoying it. Oh yeah. So what quite an interesting question is, I think from my research around the very late 90s, the blues scenes just dropped off suddenly in Britain again. So all the bands went over to the States. So did you, by the time you were playing with Johnny Winter, you saw some of? I know you mentioned Savoy Brown, and we talked about Ken Simmons, who passed away recently. But
he was a nice man. I never played with him. He did ask me to do the gig, but I couldn't at the time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So were there still a lot of British blues bands from that era kind of floating around the States afterwards? Did they do quite well in the States?
The bands that were, I don't know if it was necessarily the British blues bands.
Yeah.
Say, well, do you want to call Foghat a British blues band?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
you could. In other words, there were a lot of different people from
Yeah, so they came over and then formed new things.
But the bass player with Foghat, who's on not the original, is a guy from Connecticut who just passed away not long ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Who I met back when I was 17. But just saying those kinds of bands with British guitar players.
Yes. Yeah.
And then there would be American rhythm sections, and then a lot of these guys would come over and use pickup bands anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So they were just sort of like a lot of the British blues bands would be like around the same kind of popularity, say, as a lot of the Alligator acts.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Alligator Records acts,
Yeah.
Little Charlie and the Nightcats,
Yeah.
and Dave Hole, the Australian slide player. They would all kind of be playing a lot of the same venues.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't the from a joint in Austin to Carnegie Hall like Stevie Ray.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They were just all working guys.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think Stevie Ray was in the States. That's when it kind of went crazy, really, was it? Blues, or the revival kind of element.
He had a lot to do with it, and he's certainly credited with having a lot to do with it. All things coming together, whether it be the discovery of by John Hammond.
Yes. Yeah.
He was a sweet guy too. Yeah, and that's how I met Tommy, because
when
I was playing with Roy Buchanan, we were a support act.
Okay, right.
I just went over to the bus and knocked on the door, and and he was really sweet. And then a couple of years later, when I got the gig with Johnny, I did the same thing.
Yeah,
hey, I'm playing with your old boss.
Yeah. And another thing I found, because Joe Bonamassa obviously loves the British blues stuff. He's got the album, hasn't he? But I stumbled across some interviews, and there was one with Kim Simmons. So I watched that recently. Weirdly enough, I actually emailed Kim Simmons about 2 months ago, because he's actually he used to write a lot of the blogs on the website. But obviously he was ill, and and then I'd heard he passed away. It was really sad. So there was an interview with Joe Bonamassa and Kim. It's really, really sweet interview. And like, Kim's just like a normal bloke. He's not rock and roll at all. Well,
And if you look at interviews with Joe, he's a normal bloke.
Yeah, completely normal bloke, isn't he? And was it
a guy who likes a lot of toys and who wants to know stuff? Listen, this guy's played with Ian Anderson too.
Yeah.
And Jethro Tull and the Moody Blues are my wife's favorite bands.
Oh yeah, because we've got that connection with Gordy now, who still goes that. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the band that Gordy is in now, the Blues tribute thing, is being handled by an agent, a New York agent.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he's handled the band that I was telling you about before. So, as a matter of fact, my wife and I are going on the Justin Hayward cruise in a couple of weeks.
Oh, cool! So that
we're seeing him here as well. And I know the drummer that plays with John Lodge is a Florida drummer, used to be in California, and Billy Ashbo. There's
cool.
Cool people. Oh, and of course there's Mike Dawes.
Who's that?
Has been Justin's guitar player and opening act for years.
Okay, yeah.
He's pretty frightening.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about him and Tommy Emmanuel in the same breath.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Well, Gordy, I first met Gordy in early 2000, depping. He was doing Fame. It was his chair, and I used to dep a lot. And then the Kendall Connection, which is our original blues rock thing at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good band.
Yeah, well, Nick plays in Gordy's band. So Nick plays guitar in the band. So yeah, that they do that, which is the kind of good connection.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think the Bonamassa, he calls it Nerdville or something like that. He just, he's quite proud of being a nerd, which I thought was nice. But what he meant, the question I've got, like he mentioned, he thought it was quite funny that he talked about the British blues shuffle, but he didn't really elaborate. He said there was this typical British blues shuffle, but I didn't really know what he meant. But I wonder if you got any idea. Do you think he means?
I'd be speculating.
Yeah, but I wonder what.
Try it.
Yeah.
I think the British blues shuffle that he's referring to, if I would hear exactly what he's referring to, it might be easier for me to articulate.
Yeah.
I just think it's something that's much less rigid.
I mean,
it would be along the lines of what we were talking about before.
Yes.
And you could look at a really irascible, politically oriented band like Country Joe and the Fish.
Yeah.
And they're playing blues, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a British blues shuffle. And Johnny Winter's drummer, by the way, was British, Tom Compton.
Oh, okay, right, okay. I didn't know
And we're
that.
still good mates. He played with Alvin Lee's 10 years later.
Oh, right. Oh, 10 years later. Yeah, I'll use one.
Yeah, with a band with a bass player named Mick Hawksworth. Were you familiar with him?
Oh, cool. No, I'm not actually, but one of their tracks I'm
Double
doing in the
neck,
course.
guy.
Oh, cool.
You know,
Okay. Yeah, the
you
10
know.
years. Yeah, yeah, the tune I'm doing of theirs, it's like this, it's amazing. It's just this walking thing. Boo doo boo boo doo 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 doo. It just goes for the whole tune. It's really nice. But
Calvin Fuzzy Samuels played in that band.
oh
You know,
yeah, yeah,
Stephen Stills.
yeah, yeah,
But Tom was with them for a long, long time.
yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah,
Rocket Fuel, I think, is the most popular recording.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's just a way, you know what? And I'm wondering, and I
yeah.
don't know if this is true or not, but I'm just trying to think out loud while I'm speaking to you about
Yes,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
the fact that someone would hear a vocalist
yeah.
with a British accent would make him want
Yes.
to pigeonhole it as British blues.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Interesting.
You know,
Yeah.
like listening to Christine Perfect sing "I'd Rather Go
Yes.
Blind" in Chicken
Yes.
Shack, and
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
not being the same as Coco Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah. No, interesting. I mean, he just literally said it as a throwaway line, Bonamassa, and just laughed. And I thought, I don't know I don't know what he's referencing. And
I would say that it's just
yeah.
more reckless, kind of more fun than rigid kind of playing.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
that more is acceptable.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
like the guy like we were talking about Noel Reading before, the fact that there's not a lot of repetition in his work.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
it's a big wall of
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a great wall, and nobody else could do
no
that.
one else could. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so maybe it has to do with if Hendrix is playing Red House, you know, which we talked about before, then it's that. As a matter of fact, the doom doom, you know, the fifth thing.
Yeah.
Johnny Winter made Tommy Shannon play that.
Oh, that's interesting because that's when I did a lesson on that ages ago. Not really. I just heard it, and I
think it's Be Careful with a Fool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where Tommy started doing it back when Johnny.
Yeah, because one of my
higher register.
Yeah.
But then again, he's also dealing with a Fender jazz bass.
Yeah.
And a custom or an acoustic 360, which is not an EB3 and a Marshall.
Yeah.
It's just you know, the whole end result of it is different.
Yeah, because I tried to. I noticed it first. Tommy Shannon doing it on. I think it was Texas Flood, something live anyway. And that's where I heard it, and I was like, "This is amazing." It's really hard to play it on that, you know. I was like, you know, but and then I hear it on Red House, and then one of my subscribers said, "Yeah, it's on the Johnny Winter thing as well." So,
I think Be Careful with the Fool.
Okay.
I mean, we used to cover Red House. We didn't have a set list when we did gigs.
No.
We just played tunes.
Oh right, yeah.
Which my jobbing mentality really helped me with.
Yeah. You just got to come up with it. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. When I was doing actually stepping out, when I was listening back, dropping in the sax and stuff, I was thinking, is that sitting there, and then then I listened back to the original. I was like, wow, they just were not thinking like that, like about time and stuff. They just, but it works, but you can't play like that now. I couldn't, if I recorded like that now and gave them the backtrack, people are like, what's going on, you know?
Well, maybe yes, maybe no. I mean, the first thing I hear is if I'm going to play Stepping Out, the first thing I'm going to do is play the Charleston figure over and over again.
Yeah.
Bump, bump,
yeah,
bump,
bump,
bump. I don't even need, there's nothing to fill in. There's so much. There's so much. First of all, you got da 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 da.
Yeah.
Already the ground rules have been set.
Yes.
You're going to have this thing happen, and it's going to be a lot of tension to it.
Yes. Yeah. It just builds up, builds, doesn't it?
I'm going to send you something I did with I don't know if you may or may not know that I did this about a year ago or 2 years ago. I took the live Albert Hall recording of Rollin' and Tumblin'.
Oh yeah.
I overdub bass on it.
Oh, nice.
And it's on YouTube.
Oh,
but
cool.
I tried to make it like I'm sitting in with the band.
Yeah. Nice.
Jack, I'm not there to do this and that.
Yes. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It was fun. It was just fun and done with, lots of love and deference to why that's there.
Yeah.
Because Rollin' and Tumblin' to me is the quintessential blues song, no matter who's doing it.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like feels like blues.
Yeah.
A lot of other people you would say that maybe are the practitioners that you started to talking about, Americans as well, where it sort of became more, I hate to use this word, but like yuppified.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
less confrontational.
Yes,
But blues is supposed to be confrontational. Blues is tell you something.
Yes,
as opposed to being background music.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's people's main gripe with direction that Clapton went in. Basically, is it's became, it's slightly sanitized, or but it's like
he has the right to do what he wants.
Yeah.
Baker doesn't have to be towed in 1968.
Yes.
In 2005 when they were at Albert Hall.
Yeah.
Not. I mean, a lot of people, one of the reasons there's tribute bands now and that they're so popular is that they're recreating the sound of the records that people originally heard.
Yes.
Leonard Skinner playing Freebird in 2023 is a whole different thing.
Yes.
But the people still want it. And when you have an audience of people that are not tolerant of wanting to hear like Segovia at age 89. As opposed to hearing real fleet-fingered things.
Yes.
It's an interesting science, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it really is. Yeah. Playing with, I take the bass out of a lot of tracks now and just play along for demonstrations and stuff, and that's really interesting, isn't it? Like I did Lagrange, ZZ Top, and I was like, just trying to work out where to place it, because you're just doing it in reverse a bit, aren't you? You're not like just there with a drummer laying down a groove. You're like, okay, it's got to fit with someone, and I was playing that, I was like, it's not actually sitting with a guitar here. And so then it's like a really interesting process, isn't it? Try and work out.
Is it sitting with Frank?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you look at Frank, and me being loving drums as well, I'm watching him and he barely looks like he's moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where would you play Lagrange now as opposed to how he played it on Tres Hombres?
Yes. Well, I found a live thing from, I reckon it was probably 10 years ago, and that was really interesting. That's
and also with the technology, I mean, they're all playing out of these great sounding Magnatone amps and everything is close by. That's not what happened in 1973.
No.
I mean, subwoofers didn't even exist then.
Yeah.
That's another interesting thing about our instrument.
Yes.
Is that, there weren't subwoofers. There were, voice of the theaters, Altex for the vocals, and everything else was as many amps as you needed to project your sound. Whether it was SVTs or whether it was acoustic 360s or later 370s.
It's all so different now, isn't it? It's like when you do so Hamilton, I was playing in the pit doing it for a while. I was like, this is long. Is it boring to watch this? So I went to see it. I was quite interested. I don't see a lot of the shows I play in, but I was like, I want to see it. And then I just reminded me of like what you can hear in here, like everything. And you're really just playing for the band in that scenario, aren't you? And then out there, I was like, oh yeah, of course. You just can't hear, the bass is just you just feel it. And I
had that happen during Starlight Express. I walked out to the audience. We were in a room upstairs on the 4th floor of the Gershwin Theater behind the men's room. And the customer restroom. So I went out during a piece called Electra, which was one of the 7/8 things, and couldn't hear anything.
No.
And the sound designer was a very innovative sound designer. Named what was his name? Can't think of his name, but he did all the Andrew stuff.
Yeah. But then what struck me is I was like, okay, what I can make out from Hamilton is I can hear his feel, and where he's placing it. I can hear that, but I can't hear any of the other stuff. So that's what matters. Again, you just like reminded me when you go back down there again, is you can feel where you're placing it, and the audience can hear that, but they're never going to hear all the, all the other stuff. Is just not in there. So then it's kind of
Martin Levan is who I was trying to think of.
Okay,
and all those things in the 80s and 90s, but Carmine Rojas.
I like
talks about that. It's like, how much stuff are you really going to play up there? It's not going to get heard anyway.
Yes,
to your point.
Yeah. You just don't, and then you start thinking, why are you even doing that? It's like,
because you can control that. You're there to, in Hamilton, it's a lot of different things going on. You're being asked to be you and sound like the guy you're subbing.
Totally.
For. And whose name is on the ticket, but you're doing something in your, immediate assessment to make that show sound better. And to make that and to put a note under a singer reaching for something. You know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're doing. That
yeah,
the level of
yeah,
musician
yeah,
you are, you know exactly why you're
yeah,
doing it.
yes, yeah, 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 yeah. No,
And whether or not it's heard doesn't mean you shouldn't do it,
no, you're right. You're right, because if it wasn't
in my
there,
opinion.
because if you weren't there, it would get noticed. So it's kind of
Yeah,
it becomes
it becomes a
textural,
more
doesn't it?
interactive experience.
Yeah, becomes textural. Yeah, I mean, it does remind me when I first started playing. So I started late, but I got into bands, but I couldn't really. I couldn't play much, but then I had good feel. So then I got booked, and it was like it's that thing of like people just want a bass player that's got good feel and sits right. That's number one. So I was, there were other people in the town in the 90s doing 6-string slapping everything, and but people like, we don't want that. But they were, sort of technique wise way years ahead. But then that kind of taught me a lesson. Then it's like that's what people want from the bass player. I mean, you can do some nice stuff, but you've got to fundamentally do that for people.
Unless you happen to be the band leader and your bass defines the sound of the band, like Level 42.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think everyone tried to copy that and put it in a normal scenario, didn't they?
Well, and again, the more I listened to what was going on back there, and when my wife and I are watching movies and I hear all that, it's like, wait a minute, you're obliterating something the guy is saying.
Yes, yeah.
But that's okay with the musical supervisor, obviously, or else it wouldn't be happening.
Yes,
people with those kind of ears don't let those kinds of things get through.
No.
So blues is a much more organic, can I say?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
That the communication is there. You're not dealing with a lot of extemporaneous things. The one thing I always had about blues, and this is only my personal opinion, I hope I'm not offending anybody, sometimes really busy horn arrangements on blues keep me from feeling that it's as bluesy as it could be.
Yeah, because there's a couple of tracks of Chicken Shack, one of them, and it is blues, but it's kind of jazz blues. So it's got this old
but
big
it's
band,
in the way of a vocal. It's
big
in the
band
way of
kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, sure, but I mean, if you wanted to go back and say that big band blues is cool, listen to Caledonia. That's pretty bluesy.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like in more modern recordings where you have extremely, digitally recorded horn lines that definitely sound like they're overdubbed and don't add to the song at all.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. Yeah.
Which changes the way the bass players play, because if you're hearing the harmony that they're playing, you don't get to go.
Yeah.
Else. You don't get to go necessarily where you want. If there was, say, and this is also very true of a guitar and piano player playing together.
Yeah.
A lot of times, everybody's comping all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
So that definitely changes the way I play.
Yeah. But yeah, that's great. I think I've come to the end of the questions for that.
I've enjoyed myself immensely, and I'm really flattered you asked me.
Yeah, it's been brilliant, and I know that at some point we'd definitely have to do an interview and chat to you, or a masterclass and chat about the Johnny Winter thing, because like he's quite popular. It's quite interesting actually. A lot of guitarists over here just don't know Johnny Winter. Like I'm sort of like, I'm 40. What am I? 47 now, but like maybe 40 people in their 30s, 40s guitarists over here who are into rock and blues and stuff. A lot of them don't know Johnny. But it's just one of those people that didn't sort of kind of not on people's radar over here. But I found out about him through Tommy Shannon originally. But a lot of my subscribers, Canadians, Americans, they're all really into Johnny Winter. So they'd love to have to hear, to have.
Well, how do they like him compared to, like the quintessential? You were talking about British blues.
Yeah,
I would say that Gary Moore epitomizes British blues. Les Paul.
Yes, yeah.
That to me is sort of a staple.
Yes.
Of that sound, especially if you're looking at like Clapton bios and stuff. The fact that Marshall, JTM 45 with the 12 cabinet didn't exist before it existed.
Yeah.
Jim Marshall was a drummer, right?
Oh no, I didn't know that.
he was Mitch Mitchell's teacher.
Was he? Wow.
Yes. And that to me, Greg, is all about what this is. I mean, when I hear a song and I found out there's an earlier version of it, I want to know about Don't Throw Your Love Away. Okay, the first version I heard when I was 10 was by the Searchers.
yeah, yeah.
Listen to the Orlon's version.
Yes, yeah,
Where they got it from. It's like, oh my goodness,
yeah, yeah.
Yes, and then you think about how did they get these things to sound like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
With 3 mics in the room.
Yeah, yeah.
For the whole band, and that's why it's all part of the education for me. Similar to the way that you have a thirst for it, and so do I.
Yeah, I mean, and going from me to the American stuff was brilliant, because suddenly I found this wealth of, of artists and songs of the original versions of the stuff. Like I remember when I was younger, my dad always go on at me about, like some 80s person would just bring out one of the hits. All their hits were from stuff from the 60s, just like covers. Yep. And then he'd say, yeah, that was done by so and so. And I'm like, was it? He's like, yeah, you want to check out the original? It's brilliant.
Right. And you know what? If I could add just one thing to your subscribers and listeners, I think that no matter what you're playing, blues, especially blues, it's really helpful to know the lyrics of every single song.
That's interesting. Yeah, okay.
Makes you play different. If you're sitting there on a low E, and hearing somebody go, "The sky is crying, look at the tears roll down the street," that's got to do something to you.
Yes,
if you're playing the song right.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip, actually. I think it's that link for when people first start playing an instrument, they're just getting the notes out, aren't they? Just like, I've just got to be able to technically play the notes. And then it's
they're trying to clone the Crossroads solo.
Yeah.
They don't even understand that Crossroads was a Robert Johnson song.
Yes, yeah.
Sitting on Top of the World was a Howlin' Wolf song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why to go back and play these songs correctly. And I didn't start doing it until I was an adult and got more, got smarter about wanting to get better.
Yes,
I didn't know about it till I knew about it. Because remember, when we hear these things when we're kids, we hear them because of what radio and people getting their stuff on the air and payola and whatever else existed. Yes. That's why we heard this music to begin with.
Yeah.
So to go back and, one of my wife's favorite movies is Pirate Radio.
Okay.
So to go back and hear this in context, even though it's a large, very successful movie, there's still something about when that ship is going down and Whiter Shade of Pale is playing.
Oh, yeah. What song?
That makes it a brilliant choice.
Yeah.
And that's blues. That could be a blues tune. You could you could put blues changes to that, and it would still be awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a song that's through composed with a hook and everything.
Yeah.
And the fact that Robin Trower came out of that band and became Robin Trower, that's kind of Robin Trower is another perfect example of British blues to me.
Yeah.
But when I met Robin, when I first played with Roy Buchanan, Robin Trower was the opening act. Wow, and he had a bass player with him that I know a monster British bass player named Dave Bronze.
Okay, yeah.
Jesus. I mean, and I was playing the 8-string bass at the time.
Oh, yeah.
How I got the gig with Johnny.
Yeah.
And then, the next time we were on a bill with Robin Trower, there's Dave Bronze. He goes, "Look what I made." And he shows me this like Warmoth Park style P bass 8-string bass that he made.
I mean, I'd love to. Yeah,
this is one of the 3 of my crew here.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing.
Roger Sadowski. It comes standard with this P bass, and Roger.
Oh, right, yeah.
And put the way he made this concentric control is volume tone with a pan pot.
Well, yeah.
So that's why I'm able to get so much. That's sort of been a passion of mine.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It's in as many contexts as I can.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I was going to say, what advice would you give to bass players? But there's a brilliant one about the lyrics. Actually, that's excellent.
What advice would I give to bass players?
Trying to just improve their blues playing, really.
Play. I don't want this to sound because of the sophistication. Of DAWs.
Yeah.
Not Mike Dawes, but
DAWs.
Logic Pro. Get hold of some really good shuffle, authentic drum rhythms.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Yeah. Okay.
Because even though they're on a click and they're quantized, the idea is to be able to psych out what a drummer is doing. As a matter of fact, if you're taking a MIDI kind of drum loop, you could put a humanized thing
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
And
Yeah.
then it'll sound more like, wait a minute, this guy's had a few. But you know what? You're playing blues. A lot of people have had a few.
Yes.
So, and then where to fit into that. So what that does is it changes the length of your notes.
Yeah.
It changes your articulation.
Yes.
It puts you in, so if you can play with the drummer.
Yeah.
And a drum machine is a great way to go here, or one of your cool backing tracks.
Yeah.
That focus on the drums.
On the drums,
so it's that, and it's the repetition of the notes as a mantra.
Yeah,
that to
brilliant.
Those to me are two very key elements to being a good blues bass player.
Yeah, that's
creating
great.
Ostinatos.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
and space.
And I always kind of articulation has been a big drive that I've been trying to do for the last year with the videos and the channel, because it really, that's what defines a player. I think the way they articulate. Well, certainly adds a lot of musicianship to your bass line, doesn't it?
Right. And if you're going to fill, make sure something more important is not happening.
Yes. Oh yeah. So space. Yeah.
Maybe this guy
in a gap,
particular moment wants to take his pick and run it sideways down the strings, and that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So if you're doing something else, you're going to undermine what that guy is doing.
Yeah.
Like the famous Gliss guys with the Strats.
Oh yeah, yes.
That listen to Stevie.
The pink thing was was that Joe Walsh did that, and
a lot of Hendrix did it at the end of Manic Depression.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it's a popular technique that if a guy has, especially when you're going to go to a club anywhere and there's somebody's name on the thing, you're part of the and, you're not part of the thing. So you got to always accompany the guy.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, with Johnny Winter, there would always be bass trading fours and trading twos, a lot of solos with fermatas on them, and Johnny would always win because it's Johnny's name on the ticket.
Yes,
that's what has to happen.
Yeah, no, totally.
If I'm going to start playing all this stuff, and he's like, "Who's this asshole?"
Yeah. Yeah, totally. You won't be on the next gig.
Well, the point is that they're there to get what they need. You're not totally redefine the wheel when somebody to a gig and you've been on the bus for 30 straight nights and you're not, your stomach is upset from some lousy meal you just had. So the idea is to, for me, with all the guys that I've worked with, no matter who they are, I'm in their zone.
Yes.
And trying to do what I do. I'm going to get better learning something else other than one of my tricks. Yes. If I can find something that I don't know that's going to work behind this guy, that's what I got to do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a better musician for it.
Yes.
And I can use it with someone else.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about your Hamilton example.
Yes. Yeah. And just being versatile. I think I saw something on your website and you put that you wanted to you put something like you just wanted to be able to be versatile, just to play in any style and be able to just, and I like that kind of resonate to me a bit.
But the parentheses there is I wanted to do it the way I felt appropriate.
Yes.
And sometimes it wasn't always appropriate to some of the people I worked with.
Yes. Yeah. But then that's why you end up, if you're a jobbing musician, you have to just deal with it. But then if you can make some choices, you end up playing with people that suit you, that kind of, it all works, then,
Right, but by the same token, whether you're in the West End in an orchestra pit or in a room, or whether you're somebody's bar mitzvah, if you read the room, they're dancing. You've done your job.
Yes, yeah.
So that's another thing. If I read the room correctly, then I'm doing things. I take whatever technical knowledge I have, and I'm trying to create the best, day tripper I can.
Yes, yeah.
For them to be dancing to.
Yeah, just a connection and to make an experience for them, basically. Yeah.
Right, but then there's the other side of the coin where if I've about 3 years ago I transcribed the bass line to something.
Oh yeah.
Who the hell? Who knew? Who knew? Maybe you knew. You probably knew sooner than I did, Grant. Fifths in the bass, moving lines. That's why it sounds the way it does. Not Frank Sinatra's recording of it. It sounds because of what Paul, what Sir Paul did. And and he might not even explain it to you like that way, but there's a clairvoyance.
Yes.
To the end. And when I played with people like Bernard Purdy, he had a vision of how the whole song was going to go. Yes. He just knew. And there's this guy, just trust him.
Yeah. No, it is interesting when you sometimes analyze bass lines. Like I used to just learn songs. I didn't really learn them properly. If you got a gig, you just hear the main bit, learn it, play it. It's only going back years later, and I love it now. That's one thing I love about Greg's Bass Shed is that I can take the time to get it note for note, see it written down, and then it's like I'm doing Brown Eyed Girl, and I just notice he just places. So he's like don't dun dun dun. He plays on two hand, but then he just dun 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 right on the end, and he just basically just changes the rhythm slightly, and it changes the whole thing. But I just wasn't aware of that. Bass was doing that at the time.
Well, and to your point, listen to what Family Man's doing on Bob Marley's "I Shot the Sheriff."
Oh yes, yeah.
As opposed to Clapton's record.
Yeah.
It's a whole other like.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
No wonder Marley is singing like that.
Yeah.
You're really feeling this dude's pain.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, kill it before it grows. You know it.
Yeah.
While listening to Family Man, and
I know. I when I first, I think I had the Clapton version first. I don't know, but when I went to do that bass line, I was like, he's doing that. You know, I just couldn't believe that I'd never really picked up on what he was actually playing. You know,
and it's not necessarily useful if you're playing that with people that are playing the Clapton version.
Yes, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I remember doing.
But as bass players, it gives you the choice.
Yes, I remember actually doing it for a cover about 10 years ago, and the drummer had just knew the Clapton version, so I tried to do that. I was like, just don't work.
But then again, you know what? In the case of looking at like those Paul Young records, one of the reasons that Pino was able to sound the way he did is because the drummer was very conscious of the fact that Pino was there, and playing in such a way that Pino could do
that stuff.
There would be no harm, no foul. You know?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. No, it's been great. It's been really good to chat.
I had a wonderful time.
Yeah, it's been great, and we'll do it again. And I think doing a specific one of Johnny Winter, you know, and your time with him would be good. Maybe we'll do a live Zoom on that or something. You know?
Sure, man.
But yeah, it's been great chatting. And like I said, when I first met you, it's like I haven't played with the famous people, but we kind of both do the kind of a sort of similar thing, don't we?
Yeah, but you are famous.
Lots of
No, sure you are. Sure you are, man. A lot of people know who you are, and you're who you are and where you are is because the people, know, respect and trust you.
Yeah.
Musical education. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. No, it's great.
And I learned a lot talking to you today.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, likewise. But yeah, so I'll stop the recording anyway.